This video is sponsored by Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. If you like Japan and feeling like a special snowflake, watch till the end of the video. The 2003 Disney movie Finding Nemo is a story about finding a son through strong currents and open seas, telling a story of a dad doing everything in his power to get his only son back, and someone in this world, this universe we live in, thought, only son? I know an only son! Then came birth Finding Jesus, which is an obvious ripoff to Finding Nemo that they didn't even bother hiding it with the name, the striped main character, and the poster. It's absolutely shameless, I tell ya. Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Rasmo, and today if you don't believe in water pollution, well, Finding Jesus proves that there are trash in the ocean that you just didn't know about. Finding Jesus is a movie that was written and directed by Jason Wright and was released in 2020. It's supposedly a Christian movie to teach kids the basic values and simple lessons and teach about Jesus. That was the goal, but instead, Jason had the genius idea of changing this up a bit, making it as unoriginal as possible to copy a certain franchise in the title and advertisement, but it's only to that extent. See, instead of making it a story about the title like Finding Nemo, he didn't make the story connected to the name of the film at all. Hell, he didn't even make a story. At least in Finding Nemo, you're gonna find out how they're gonna find Nemo. Finding Jesus is just a whole hour of nothing and everything all at the same time. Oh, and we can't forget about mentioning Jesus in any sentence we can. Every time they mention Jesus, it's like there's a gun pointed at their heads, forcing them to mention Jesus or else they won't get to see their family, which is concerning since he's supposed to be the main purpose of the film, to know the guy. And then them inserting his name in the most awkward and forced way possible says a lot about the film already. This movie is a lazily written series of episodes compiled into an hour and called it a movie. Now, I grew up in a Christian family and they let me watch shows like Superbook and VeggieTales, but this movie didn't really feel like they conveyed or told a story about the capital J over here. It's an hour-long film talking about different situations with different Bible verses and lessons to apply to it, but, spoiler alert, they weren't looking for Jesus. Neither did they find him metaphorically or literally. In my opinion, it actually shows a side of toxic Christianity we commonly see, but I'll talk about that later. Finding Jesus is about two fish named Joy and Muggles, who just share the word of God to everybody in every episode, story. Now usually I do a recap for the movies I review along with my reactions to the progression of the film, but there's not much to talk about. What I mentioned just now was what happens in every scene. Joy and Muggles talk to different people to talk about a Bible verse and a lesson. That's it. It's not a whole narrative told in an hour-long film with an act 1 to 3. There's no character arcs or plot developments. It's just short stories where you can't tell where it ends or starts, and they cut off any important details and just let the character tell you what happened instead of showing you. Imagine a picture book translated literally in film, except they don't try to show you how they feel through actions or subtext because there's a narrator telling you everything the character feels and anything you missed off screen. Like that one section where they apparently had their whole home destroyed by a natural disaster, which was only conveyed through narrations, and Joy and Muggles statically talking about it like they weren't even hiding it as a usual conversation to pose exposition. They were just dumping out exposition, and the worst part is we had to go back to rewatch that section because the pacing and the cut in the film is so bad, I was confused if we missed, skipped over, or something was cut off from the previous story because they just started talking about a natural disaster and how they managed to fix it instantly. So a whole story and conflict of them fixing their home together as a community was summed up by a 15-second conversation. It doesn't help that the two main characters barely move and they just recycle the same 3/4 view of the fishes for a majority of the movie. I'll show you a short clip of what this looks like just to let you guys get a taste.
It's a beautiful day in the ocean, and little fish Muggles and his best friend, Joy, are swimming back to their reef after a fun day in the jet stream.
Joy, I have a lot of fun with a lot of fishes, but you're by far my best friend in the whole ocean.
Thanks, Muggles. There's no one on our coral reef nearly half as cool as you.
Well, of course I'm cool. I'm an ocean fish. My body temperature hovers around 37 degrees Celsius.
Look at how empty the ocean is! And they thought they were so sly about that little joke about the clownfish. Haha, plagiarism, hilarious! And here's the little fun fact about the scene, okay? If you lean a bit closer to your speakers, you'll hear the sound of me not caring. They could have at least least put fun or upbeat background music in the background, just to make this less jarring than it already is. That clip I showed you was by far the only okay scene in the movie, mainly because of Muggles' laugh that was so dumb and found it funny. Listen, before I go any further with talking about the story and the animation, which might come off as me complaining and dissing the movie because objectively speaking, there isn't much good I can comment on this, but I don't entirely hate this movie just to hate. It's just that it's not good at all. I wish I could have watched a show about a fish finding Jesus in an attempt to push through a struggle in life or something, like her dad ate too much kelp and died, or Muggles saw Jesus' second coming in the deep sea and nobody believed him, and in the end it was just someone dropping their little model of Jesus on the cross, or something like that. Literally anything would have been better than what we got. And I know sometimes I get comments like, not every movie has to be great or Disney level storytelling and animation to be good, and I understand that. But for you to have a good movie, you gotta have a story at the very least that isn't just skipping to the end of each conflict where they talk about the lesson or saying a speech to one another about the lesson. This pattern in the movie of just narrating the conflict or any context, go to Mr. Shark so he can say the lesson and then move on to the next story, is extremely boring and jarring. Now in every section of the movie, we follow Joy and Muggles in teaching others lessons that you learn as a kid, like gratitude, friendship, honesty, and all that. And that's well and good. Many cartoons and Christian cartoons also try to teach those lessons with a sprinkle of Jesus to the kids watching, but for some reason, Finding Jesus seems to find a situation of the story that doesn't fit the lesson, and it irks me a lot. A good example is the very first short story where Joy and Muggles meet up with Mr. Shark, who tells them to go to talk to Henry because he seems unhappy. He said a lot more, but it gave me brain damage because this is how Mr. Shark talks. Listen.
Oh well, Muggles, that's easy. By not losing sight of the simple blessings Jesus has bestowed upon us, like this great, big, beautiful ocean that surrounds us, you swim in his riptide, serving your Creator and living your lives to the fullest.
Please stop talking. So the lesson itself is good. Appreciate what you have. Basic gratitude lesson. But they didn't tell you beforehand that the reason why Henry, which Mr. Shark gave the name Scary Henry, and he's called that because he has a bad reputation of being unhappy because he doesn't want to talk to anybody right now. And guess why? Because he's going through something and it's called being homeless. And then Joy and Muggles come along talking about how there are plenty of things to be grateful for, and then they offer Henry to stay at their place, which is concerning because they've only just met the crab now and their kids.
And if you need a reef to go home, come back to ours.
Our coral's open for you anytime.
That's cool. You two should go play.
Luckily, Henry obviously just asked them to leave. The lesson of gratitude could have been easily made if they talked to a kid complaining about wanting a toy when he has dozens, not teaching gratitude to a guy that just lost his home and isn't feeling happy about it because it's just an extreme example to apply gratitude. Aside from the slow acting that Mr. Shark does, everybody else seems to have a vastly different but weird voice. Like they were voiced by one guy and that he was just making up his voice sound different with every awkward new character popping up. But no, actually there were other people voicing the characters. I just thought KJ Schrock, the voice of Mr. Shark, voiced every other character like Henry or the somewhat kind of offensive stereotype Mr. Sushi, who I thought was a salmon or something, but no, he's not a sea creature, but an actual sushi roll living in the seabed who has an obviously fake Japanese accent. Speaking of voice acting, I think there's only one person whose voice acting I liked in this movie, and it's Joy. Joy was voiced by Angie McPherson. Her voice is cheerful enough and soft enough for kids to enjoy, and it won't scare the kids unlike Muggles' laugh.
What tangle can he possibly have that he can't cut himself free from?
Though looking through Angie's previous works, it doesn't seem like she's worked on a lot or anything worth noting, but her voice acting here stands out from the others because she's the only one who doesn't talk at 0.5 speed or have a terrifying laugh. Along with Joy, another main character we have in this film is Muggles, who I hate the fact that he sounds like Venti from Genshin Impact.
We sure did. Marlo shared a Bible story with us, and we learned that the bond of friendship is one of the strongest and more cherished gifts Jesus has given us.
I can just imagine making an animatic of Venti in his own church talking about Jesus using the audio from this whole film. I've done animatics before. I'm ready and willing to do it again for Venti. That being said, I wish I could say that I like the acting of Sarah Taylor, the voice of Muggles, but this whole film, it comes off as somewhat annoying. But I don't think it's Sarah's fault. I guess they directed her to to act like that since speaking clearly and a bit slowly is how most children's cartoons are. I still can't get over the awkward laugh though. I guess the voice acting would have been passable and I wouldn't have noticed it as much if it wasn't the only thing I could focus on in the scene. They're just floating there using these same angles over and over again and just them staring blankly like this with no change in expression. Then yeah, I have to rely on the voice acting to actually convey acting because there's no way to tell their emotion. It's not helping how some characters just sound like they're having a stroke in the middle of the sentence either.
What do you think about this reef, Boo Cake?
I love it!
So far from the story to the animation and production, nothing's really going well with this film. But the more I'm concerned about is the message and the way they portray it because yes, it is just a kid's film that might go over their heads, but I think it's better to avoid these sorts of problematic situations. See, earlier in the video I said that the film presents some values from Christianity that are toxic and I don't think the makers of Finding Jesus intended for it to be that way. But that's kind of the problem as well. Mr. Shark sends Joy and Muggles to go around and talk to people and either help console them with Bible verses. So basically he just sends Joy and Muggles to mind everybody's business. Now that's not my problem. Many kids' cartoons follow the premise of the main characters having or seeing a problem and help solve it. Now this premise could have been okay if done well, and they can totally write situations wherein Joy and Muggles reaching out to them would have made sense. But the way they went about it in the film just rubs me off the wrong way. I'll give you an example. In the story I mentioned before, where they lost their home and managed to rebuild it with the rest of the town off screen, they go to visit a stingray named, get this, Boo Cakes. Yeah, they're really running out of names to use. Boo Cakes just lost his seabed and has nowhere else to go. Ewan ko ba bakit laging pinadadala ni Mr. Shark tong dalawang kolokoy na to para kumausap ng mga tao walang tirahan? Di naman sila marunong eh. This is the second time this happened that they had to talk to someone homeless, but it's still weird that the scenario was repeated twice. So guess what Joy and Muggles decide to say first?
We lost our reef.
But we rebuilt, and now our reef's bigger and better than ever.
Oh, that's nice.
Boo Cake's just chilling here trying to solve his own problem, and these two nuggets just decided to talk about themselves. It sucks that you lost your home. Happened to us too, but we're fine now. Our home right now is even better after the accident. Nice, right? Well, sorry to hear that you're homeless now. Thanks, Joy. Weird flex, but okay. I'll just stare at my destroyed seabed, but tell me more about your brand new and improved home. And it gets worse. They follow up by saying this.
Hey, Boo, look alive. It's not so bad. You still have your health, and we're still your friends.
And Jesus still loves you.
His home just got destroyed. Thanks. I'm still homeless. And of course, Boo Cakes' reply was him crying and grieving about the seabed, which was all he had, as he said. You see where I'm coming from, right? The stingray is worried and grieving for the loss of his home, and these two decided to give him a lecture about it being not so bad, and it can be fixed. And listen, yes, problems can be fixed, but it's showing that you shouldn't be sad when something bad happens because Jesus loves us. Now, that's not the lesson they're trying to say, but it happens with so many of these stories in the film. Joy and Muggles visit someone with a problem, and they tell them not to feel that way anymore because Jesus provides, or it's Jesus' gift for us that we have the ability to overcome it. But it's a pattern that can be toxic in some ways, wherein you don't have to be sad, and if you are sad, then that just means you don't know this lesson from Jesus. There are many people out there who know all these things but should still have the chance to cry or vent about it, since it's understandable to lose a house, and instead of listening to Boo Cakes, they're the ones doing most of the talk. And you may say I'm reaching on this and adding something that wasn't what the creators intended, but that's the thing. Many people think they're helping by teaching us life lessons or telling us what to do instead of listening. There's even a story they could have referenced from the Bible with this, when Job was grieving and his friends sit in silence with him. It showed that you can't always comfort everybody through your words, and the best thing to do is just stay with them and keep them company if they need it. There's also a story where Joy and Muggles lied about an assignment and Mr. Shark scolded them about it, and that's all normal to get in trouble for lying about schoolwork and stuff. He forgives them, but also sends them to Mr. Flips and Mr. Sushi, where they get scolded by each of them because one time wasn't enough. Mr. Flips then tells them about Timothy, teaching them not to let others look down on them because they're young, but set an example. I get the last part of the verse fitting with the problem of them lying, but the first part struck out to me because the only people looking down on these two and reprimanding them are the people older than them. Yeah, they lied. That's something they teach kids not to do, but they keep scolding them a tad bit too much in my opinion, and Joy's just panicking that they're horrible and bad people because of that one lie. Then we meet Mr. Sushi, who sounds like this.
That isn't necessarily so, Joy. Why are Muggles right? What you two did was wrong. The great thing about our faith is that in his infinite wisdom, Jesus forgives.
It's the classic English guy tries to speak in a Japanese accent without knowing what it actually sounds like. He basically just replaced the L's with the R's and that's it. That usually happens with old cartoons from Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, all that jazz, but this was made in 2020. You know this could have been easily fixed if they just didn't give Mr. Sushi an accent in the first place. It wasn't really integral to his character, or even just put an actual sea creature and give them a name that isn't a fish cuisine. One funny thing I have to mention though is the part where they tell the story of David and Jonathan. Now, for those who don't know, David was the one kid who fought Goliath. You know that kid? Well, he grew up and he befriended the son of the king, and that's Jonathan. And the way they described the relationship just made me laugh so hard.
He met Jonathan, the king's son. There was an immediate bond between them, for Jonathan loved David. From that day on, Saul kept David with him and wouldn't let him return home. And Jonathan made a solemn pact with David because he loved him as he loved himself.
Wow, that sounds like some friendship.
And then Marlin, the swordfish, doubled down and became more descriptive of David and Jonathan's friendship.
Well, the pact between David and Jonathan included Jonathan giving David the clothes off his back, his tunic, his sword, his bow, and his belt. Jonathan showed his loyalty to David by giving David all that he had, including his weapons. Sometime later, when David fled Saul's wrath, he told Jonathan about his fears that Saul wanted him dead. In response, Jonathan actually turned against his own father. Jonathan valued David's friendship more than his position as heir to the throne of Israel. That was the strength of the friendship between them.
Look, I'm not saying anything, but I love how many times they say the word friendship just to drill it into your mind that it is a friendship. Oh, and did we forget to mention that this is a beautiful friendship? It's so hilarious to me that I feel like the creators of the film looked back at the script and thought, hey, everything you described sounds a bit, you know, add friendship like 27 more times and it's good to go.
Two bros chilling in the hot tub, 5 feet apart cause they're not gay.
This movie is no good for people who aren't Christian, and most importantly, it's not even a good thing to watch for Christians themselves, who is their main demographic. If a child were to watch this, they would have headaches whenever Mr. Shark barely finishes one sentence, and their mom has to calm them down because all you're gonna hear from the nursery is crying if they showed this in Sunday school. That's all I have to say for this film. Do I recommend it? Hell no. I don't want you to suffer as I have. I was supposed to watch Autobots, the ripoff to Cars, but there wasn't any English dub nor sub of it, so I went to watch the ripoff to Nemo, Finding Jesus. There's also a Finding Jesus 2, but please don't let me sit through that. I will cry. I could barely finish this one. If you have any ripoff movies that you'd like me to watch, let me know down in the comments. And if you have an English copy of Autobots, please send it my way. I'm so curious. I don't know where Joy and Muggles find the time to go door to door to mind other people's business, but I do know someone that manages to go door to door to send exclusive Japanese snacks that you can only get in Japan. Today's sponsor is Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co are both subscription boxes that give you snacks you can only get in Japan. Tokyo Treat gives you modern Japanese snacks, while Sakura Co offers you a taste of Japan's traditional goodies in each prefecture. Tokyo Treats' theme is Sakura Picnic Party, where you'll be drowning in pink with the Sakura Senbei that are rice crackers that I thought was just chips, but it was actually crackers. Big difference. I had a hard time eating it because I decided to get braces for the first time. Then I ate the Kit Kat Peach, and look, I don't like peach, so to me it tastes like medicine. But if you like peach flavor, then you might like this. There's a lot like the strawberry cider and the spicy ramen in the box. Then we have Sakura Co's Arrival of Sakura box, where they give you a snack guide for Hanami, the yearly celebration of cherry blossoms in Japan. I took a bite out of their Sakura Castella cake and I enjoyed it a lot. It was great. I can't pinpoint or describe the flavor, but all I can say is that I really liked it. They also got the Sakura Warabi Mochi, where there's a little flower inside. It says it's a dessert, but I don't know if I should eat the flower too. Thanks so much Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co for sponsoring this video. So yeah, big thanks to my patrons. If you want to support the channel or get me to watch a movie you'd like, go over to my Patreon and check out the tiers. Shoutouts to Piranat, Jacob K, Minehack, Christian V, Cross, and F Ignite in the Dill Pickles tier.